Hi everyone, it's Roberto Miki again, and well, I've got a great video today on the Epipen. Well, why is an orthopedic surgeon making a video on an Epipen? Well, I had the unfortunate experience and opportunity to administer an Epipen to someone who was having an anaphylactic reaction to nuts. So before we start the video, here's a short plug for the channel. Please hit like and subscribe. Thanks. So as a disclaimer, this is not a video on how to administer the EpiPen. You need to go to this website and see a video and this website to see the actual instructions of use. And you probably should be trained by a physician and or someone who's used this before. I had never used an EpiPen and had never actually read the instructions prior to this emergency situation. I encourage anyone who has to spend any extended period of time with someone with anaphylactic reactions to certain foods that they become familiar with the EpiPen, because you never know when you will be called upon to perhaps administer that EpiPen. Unfortunately, due to being unfamiliar with the EpiPen, I actually used it incorrectly, but luckily administered the full dose, even though I didn't hold the EpiPen against the thigh as long as the instructions recommended. So in the instructions, basically you have to remove the EpiPen from its carrying case, and then you have to remove the blue tab on the top of it, preferably with two hands. And then you have to hold the EpiPen appropriately so that the blue tab is to the sky and the orange is to the thigh. And this is so that the needle doesn't inadvertently inject someone else and also is administered to the patient. So you jab it into the lateral thigh. As depicted in this drawing, you can actually administer it through clothing and wait for a pop, and then you have to actually hold the pen against the skin/thigh for 3 seconds or for a count of 3. And actually the emergency room physician told me that I should have held it for like 10 seconds, so that way there is no doubt that the full dose was administered. So actually written on the EpiPen, it shows that only 0.3 milligrams of epinephrine are going to be administered when you use the EpiPen. There is more than 0.3 milligrams in the syringe within the applicator or injector, but that the majority of the fluid is actually going to stay behind in the injector. And later on in the video, we're going to show exactly how much of the epinephrine is still left behind in the injector. Now in this video, you can see there's a clear window in the EpiPen, and this is so that you can check that there's no defect or bubbles or discoloration of the fluid, there are no particles in it. If any of those are visible, then you probably shouldn't use that EpiPen. This is a photograph/video of an EpiPen that's already been used, and you can see very clearly that there is a plunger or a portion of the plunger that you can see there, indicating that the EpiPen has been used. Obviously, most medications have an expiration date, and this EpiPen does have an expiration date and a lot number, so you should check that before using it, obviously, as well. So out of a curiosity to see how an EpiPen works and also to see how much of the epinephrine was administered, I decided to take apart the EpiPen that we used. And, well, this is a little video on us taking it apart. I don't recommend that you do this. It is somewhat dangerous, as there is a very large spring that we'll show later that will come shooting out. And this is an instant replay with a freeze frame there of the spring coming out, and you can see how dangerous that is. This is a close-up of the spring, and you can see how long it is compared to the length of the actual EpiPen, so it is under a lot of compression within the EpiPen. In this part of the video, you can see us taking out the syringe portion of the injector. You can see that probably about 80% of the fluid that's in the syringe is still there, and only about 20% is actually administered. The plunger portion of the syringe actually has a stopper which will not allow the syringe to administer more than that 0.3 milligrams. Here's a close-up of that stopper that won't let the syringe administer more than 0.3 milligrams. So I'm definitely not advocating that anybody do this, but you could, technically in an emergency situation, if you needed to administer an extra dose of epinephrine, you could take this apart and draw out some air like that, and then flip the needle over, and you could administer another 0.3 milligrams. Technically, you should never be in that position, because you should have a second EpiPen, and you should have already called 911 and explained to them that you've used an EpiPen, that you will possibly need an additional epinephrine dose, and that they should be carrying that. You should be going to the emergency room directly from there, and in the emergency room, you may require additional medications such as an extra dose of epinephrine, Benadryl, steroids, Zyrtec, and Pepsid. Every time you administer an EpiPen, you must go to the hospital and the emergency room because you need to have your heart monitored and you may require an additional dose of epinephrine. Remember, the epinephrine may only last about 20 to 30 minutes. But this is the white part that goes in there. This is the spring that was supposed to be in here. You can see how strong it is. Super strong. Springs, you gotta be careful with that. Inside the syringe, there's the epinephrine. There's a stopper on this syringe, which will not let it go in any further than that. And there is a needle in this, so you gotta be careful with that too. There's the needle. So you gotta be careful with that for sure. Pretty stiff needle there. Looks like probably like a 20 gauge needle or 18 gauge needle there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next video.